So look at that, we can
Okay.
talk
What
about
about
that.
regular, these are polo shirts, what about the denim shirts, like you wear a tie with or something?
Well, you can look those over and see what you think. We don't have to
I think it's a good
make a
idea.
decision today.
Yeah, I just picked
Yeah,
out
it's
the
just,
12
to-
shirts for
Because
now.
When you have a chance to look it over.
organized some of
If
those
everybody's ready,
from
we
the
can
co-op,
start.
when I go to the, was it the NACO meeting?
Yeah.
I got a couple of those from George Hoyfelter and from Bill Clark, and I wear those. And I think that's a good idea, because a lot of them do that.
Yeah. All right, let's go. I want to welcome all of you at home to the May 19th meeting of the County Commissioners, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we do have, I think we do have somebody we know who is coming in under public comment
Matt,
this morning.
yeah, I thought I...
Casey Lee.
Diane Casey Lee.
She couldn't be in the other room by any chance.
I think so.
And at 12:30, we're going to have a report from the auditors.
Yeah, the auditor's coming in.
The
Yeah.
auditors
I
are
did
coming
hear
in.
that John Ullman is not available to attend, so he won't be here. Apparently his wife is receiving some kind of award, so he's up.
Oh, how nice.
that today.
Did you forget? Or...
I thought it was, you know what I had on my calendar for tomorrow?
I didn't find out about it until this morning.
I'm the one that nominated her.
What's the award?
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
An unsung hero for the Women's Coalition.
Did Angie Chalaka get one?
I don't know, but I nominated Kathy and I didn't get up there.
I nominated
Well, you have a good
somebody
excuse.
I know, I had to be here.
Yeah,
I nominated someone as well. I'd like to find out how she made out.
but yeah.
Because
so
Kevin
that's what
Turner and I
counts.
both sent in letters.
I was the person that sent the letter in. That got her the award.
Well, congratulations to Kathy, huh?
Yes, yes. And quite frankly, well, let me speak about her then. You know, Kathy
Yeah, sure.
Ullman is the wife of John Ullman, delegate from Dennis. And she is a friend, no doubt. But she is someone I've really always admired. I mean, she is a person who says, I'll do that, and it gets done. And in spite of the fact that she has 3 sons, 2 of whom are autistic, those children, when they were born, were sort of given very low marks, and people did not have very high expectation for their progress. And her eldest son now is attending 4Cs, and he drives and maintains his own living. He works quite hard for people and different various jobs. And her son Patrick, who has a little bit more in the way of challenges, is doing remarkably well. He's over at the tech school. And with that, Kathy is someone who is a friend, a good neighbor, always reaches out, works with her church, works with her community, has very good ideas as far as the system. I mean, I've listened to her for a long time as far as the obstacles that parents with special needs children have. And she's gone to many people trying to express how the obstacles are built in there, making it difficult. And she is a social worker from MSW background, so she has the tools and the skills to be able to work through these systems where many people don't, and she recognizes that and is always advocating for that. So for those reasons, I felt that she is one of those unsung heroes that gets out there and slogs every day on behalf of others and herself, and is rarely recognized. So with that, Kathy, I'm really sorry I didn't get up there, but I am here doing the county's work.
But you go to MSW at Boston College, you knew that, right?
Yes, oh God, that's right. So that makes it even a more unbelievable MSW.
Oh, absolutely.
Those Boston College people, but and no, my uncle was one, so that's okay. But I do congratulate her, and I regret that I'm not there to share that with her today. But I'm sure it's a gala event, and hope she's having fun. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Okay, we, Mark and Maggie met earlier to go over our schedule for the for the month. For the month of June, actually, the rest of this month and the month of June. And topics such as CMed, we'll take up on June 2nd. And as you know, the Lieutenant Governor and his cabinet, this municipal cabinet group that he has, they're visiting various places around the state. And they came to Falmouth on Monday morning of this week, 2 days ago. And he had some of they weren't all have the secretaries, but they were assistant secretaries in some cases. Human resources, civil service, energy, I don't remember the rest, finance. Anyway, it was a pretty good meeting. A lot of people testified. I testified as a county commissioner.
I believe I'd sent in some written
Yeah.
testimony. Did that get
That was the regionalization one. That was on Friday.
Oh, sorry.
That was on Friday.
Okay. Did that get into the record, by the way?
Yes, both of our,
Yeah, Sheila and I
both made
both spoke
statements.
at that. So anyway, we're going to take that up, and we're going to look at septic betterment, maybe even make a site visit out to the base, and take a look at what
And when did you want to
the
do that?
testing. Well, we don't know just
Okay,
yet, but
so-
we're just looking at
So you're looking at
tentative schedules for June, May
CMed,
26th, June
septic.
2nd, June 9th, June 16th, June 23rd, and possibly, since there are 5 Wednesdays in June, that we may not meet on the 30th, because that's the meeting prior to the 4th of July. So if, that's what I really wanted to bring up. If that's agreeable with you, we won't meet on that day,
June 30th?
June 30th.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Bill?
I think so. I just
And I just want to mention the septic
Mark?
betterment thing is timely because we are working now on the borrowing documents through the Water Pollution Abatement Trust for the final $3 million of the second $10 million. So once these papers are all signed and sealed and delivered, we'll have borrowed $20 million basically for the septic betterment program since it's an inception of us doing it, and that's a pretty good milestone. So I thought we'd have Kendall come in and give you guys an update on what we've done, how many systems that involves, that type of thing.
I'm good with that on June 30th.
You're good with that? Okay. Do you want to give a report on your meeting, your NACO meeting? NACO, not NACO. What's it? National
NACO.
Association of Counties.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
I was watching my grandkids down in
I thought you were
Atlanta.
Oh, I thought you were down at a meeting.
No, that was last time, wasn't it?
No. Oh,
In
okay.
Atlanta? I was watching my grandkids.
Oh, I
thought
see.
you were
Well,
at
here, we
NACO
thought you
meeting.
were away on business.
Well, I'll have to watch
Well,
out that he doesn't
there was a lot of business. My
county
Make sure you
granddaughter
check
got,
those dates.
my granddaughter got elected to be president
yes,
of her 8th
kid.
grade class, so I could claim some opportunity for consulting. That was.
I thought you were at a NACO, thank you.
Yeah, that's where we thought you
There's
were.
only 2.
Yeah. I thought it was the legislative one,
No,
no?
it's July. It's July.
July.
There's one in
Okay.
July, yeah.
Okay, well, I have a report.
All right, you have a report.
I have things to discuss.
Okay.
Okay, as you know, we've entered an agreement with NSTAR to have a year moratorium on their spraying, and that is to allow the Cape Cod Commission. There was an outcry, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail here just to explain, since we have an audience. The big question is the rights of way, particularly in the Outer Cape towns where the soil is less porous or more porous than other places, and when they are spraying, there's a lot of concern about it going into our drinking waters and environment. So there has been an outcry that this practice of spraying herbicides by NSTAR be halted. There was a moratorium given to Eastham, the town of Eastham, last year to see if they could actually ban the use of herbicides, and they found out that they cannot. Towns individually and even the county cannot ban herbicides because that is a legislative action only that comes through the Department of Agriculture, and so legislators have to work on that. However, in the meantime, there was also concern that there were new private wellheads and wellheads that were not identified on their maps that were being used by NSTAR. So the commission went out and mapped the wells, and indeed there were discrepancies between what existed and what appeared on the maps. So what we proposed is that we could take this year to do all mapping throughout the towns of unidentified wellheads and sensitive areas that NSTAR would be directly spraying upon, then going in and being more of a threat to people's drinking water. So that is what we can do within the tools we have. So at least we can assure people that their spraying is not occurring directly on wellheads. Now, many towns don't have a problem. They understand that NSTAR has to use herbicides, but they were concerned about the wellheads, which is our solution. Now there are still people who are very concerned about our drinking water, such as Green Cape and various organic agricultural entities and people who are activists in the community who feel that there should be an entire ban on herbicides. And I have had conversations with some of them and stated, we have done what we can and we're happy to continue the dialogue. However, just to do a ban, you have to be careful that by doing a ban, NSTAR is not the only user of herbicides. And quite frankly, the way they go about it, they are very methodical in trying to reduce the impact of their spraying. And they do have this vegetative management program that is, actually very good practice for a company their size, and they only use there's only 3 herbicides that are approved by the Department of Agriculture, and those are the only tools they have at their disposal. So unless the Department of Agriculture approves one of these organic alternatives, they really can't use it because they are under the law as well. So in some ways, NSTAR is not the biggest culprit. It's easy to go after a corporation, but they are trying to work with the community within the laws, as are we. It takes changing the law, which takes changing legislation, which means legislators have to get involved at this point. Now, if groups want to pursue that and look at the impact of just saying, this is no good, we're going to ban herbicides, you will then be affecting the economic engines of landscapers, farmers, golf courses. So until we have an alternative for these groups to use, we could actually create an economic problem for all of them if you just ban spraying across the board. So it's not something that even the legislators can just go up there and say, we want to ban this and have no alternative, because now you're leaving people whose livelihoods have a relationship with these. So I proposed in an article last week that maybe it would be nice to maybe have a subcommittee of people come together, these concerned. I'd be happy to convene that under the county's umbrella, bring in legislators. They could discuss what is the course of action that would have to be taken, and how do we get the science behind the, how does that science come about? How can you prove that these herbicides are effective, non-lethal, non-toxic, and could be a viable substitute for what is being used now? And then how does that carry forward into legislation, into the Department of Agriculture? It's a slower process than they would all like. They would like a ban, a year ago. It probably won't happen for at least a year or so, because legislation, as we all know, and all of these testing practices and laboratory results that we need take time. But if it's really desired, then you really have to look at it instead of just crying out and saying this should be done, and nobody's listening to us. That means you're not doing anything. So I would like to propose that we pull together a subcommittee and bring all of those stakeholders together and help them facilitate a discussion so they can put together a roadmap.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
In time past, Cape Cod Commission has had some practice and experience with doing monitoring of wells. And the question comes up in my mind as to who pays for that?
Yeah, okay, that is a very good point as far as the other part of what we're doing, not just identifying wellheads. There are several test wells out in the Outer Cape and a couple others on the, at the Mid and Upper Cape. Those are going to, and the fact that in Eastham there has not been spraying for a year, and there won't be spraying for a year now, another year. There'll be 2 years without that particular herbicide used by NSTA. So we are taking samples, and it's going to be ongoing monitoring of those wells. Those studies now go to UMass
Who pays for that?
for the Department of Agriculture is going to assist, I think, in some of the payment of this. Yes, that was a discussion.
The county has any exposure, because we don't have a budget for it.
Yeah, we don't have a budget for it, although the commission has looked at this and they are going to be doing this monitoring, and I do think that somewhere in there, because it is their test wells, somewhere in there, there's I don't know if there's funding or an agreement made with with UMass Laboratories that is an ongoing thing with this. So that is a question I have to have Paul answer. I don't know all the details, but it is going to happen, and that is something that we can do. And then, so we'll have a baseline of no herbicide spraying for a year, almost 2 years, and then we can do a testing once it commences again, because it will commence, but it will at least won't be directly on wellheads. What is the impact of that? And if there is an insignificant impact, and yet these traces are found, from where do they come from? And it's not only just businesses that use these. Probably the biggest culprit, and I think over our last discussions about hazardous waste was very appropriate at the time. If people do not have hazardous waste pickup, or they don't take advantage of those gates when those hazardous waste pickup are scheduled in their town, then many people resort to throwing their medications down the toilet, throwing their extra paint or turpentine out in the woods somewhere. I mean, if you walk along, you can see sometimes this discarded debris. So there is very little control over the private citizen, and we are contributors ourselves. So a lot of this is education. A lot of it is making the public aware that it's easy to look at a corporation and say they're the culprit, but we are also part of the problem. And I think that having a subcommittee would be able to also bring that forward and help educate the public as to best practices. And, the thing about Mike McGuire coming in with that whole thing about how is hazardous waste and this pickup taking place, and I mean, he was stating that the county goes off and procures the best price for hazardous waste pickup. That contract deal is presented to towns. If they want to sign on to that contract, they do so at a third of the cost that even the state would provide, and then they pay for that directly to the waste disposal company. But many towns are looking at their budgets, and where they will cut is they might have to cut that part of their budget. So there is no hazardous waste in their town pickup in their town. So those towns are left, and that just creates a bigger problem, because the ones that do take part in that, it's tremendous the amounts of materials they bring in.
But just a question: don't the towns share those hazardous waste sites, though? They work together.
I think they do try. In the Outer Cape town, it's like Truro, Wellfleet, Eastham.
Yeah. Remember, though, Mike said that they coordinate the conduct of a collection session.
Right.
But they keep track of which person is from which
what
town,
right.
and then the bill goes to that town
Oh,
for whatever materials are collected.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, and then that bill is paid directly to the hazardous waste. There's always this question that the county gets that. We don't. We just do all of the work as far as getting the best price and setting up, and getting the word out and advertising, and then, coordinating, as you say. So we have people on site when that is happening. So we do a lot for nothing, out of our general funds, and and then the towns just pick up the cost of.
Can we
the
go back to the NSTAR? NSTAR spraying transmission lines,
Yes.
right? Does every town on the Cape have a transmission line?
Yeah, I mean, they're all the
They're
rights
all-
of way
yeah,
for all
just-
our electrical wire.
Right, yeah.
And that's because under federal law, they have to keep those rights of way
Right.
clear, because if there's a storm and a tree branch, I guess a couple of years ago we had a big blackout that was, do you remember the last one? It was sort of in New York and up into the Northeast. And that was from one tree branch breaking out a critical point. And that just, so by, which disrupts everything and anything. So by federal mandate, that particular time then put an amendment to the federal mandate. Not only do they have to keep those rights of way clear, they cannot let the responsibility go onto the individual, because sometimes an individual gets sick and they can't be pruning, or they're not out there doing what they said they would do. So they are then forced to maintain these,
Yeah, so
directly.
what's the role of the town here with NSTAR, the different towns? Are they relying on the commission to help?
Well, right now they're any town that wants their wellheads, if they feel that there's discrepancies in their mapping of private wellheads in sensitive areas, the commission will go. They should contact the Cape Cod Commission, and their staff, along with AmeriCorps volunteers, are walking these rights of ways with maps and GIS systems and identifying them and putting them on the map so that everybody has accurate, up-to-date data. That way we can feel at least comfortable that NSTAR isn't directly spraying on a wellhead that's unknown to them.
Could I ask a question, if I may? I would be concerned if we're giving a perception that we're identifying sites and then the towns, do we have the support of the town?
Yeah, the town, we are only doing it with the request of the town.
Okay.
And the towns, what happens is every spring, NSTAR sends a letter to the town saying we're going to be doing our spraying, the spring season's coming. And just to let you know, that, and if you have any updated materials, like mapping, send them to us so that we can make sure that we're, doing it as best practice. A lot of towns, especially, now Falmouth may not buy in on this because they have a GIS system, as does Barnstable. So they might feel like, we have the resources to identify our wellheads and we feel comfortable with everything. But if towns like Eastham or Wellfleet or the smaller towns, Brewster, just don't have the capacity to do that, where the county is willing to step up and do that.
Well, I guess I have to state this caveat. We just got through with cleaning up, the water, the area in the
Right.
fire
Fire.
academy, and that was several hundreds of
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but we're not talking cleanup.
We're
yet,
not
Bill.
cleaning, we're just
talking about
identifying.
a
It's
study
just-
committee really to look at where
Right.
wellheads are,
Safe
identify
spraying.
those sites.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe look at some of the consequences of spraying and look at alternatives,
Right.
if I heard you
In the
correctly.
past, when the Cape Cod Commission has taken up the responsibility for doing wellhead monitoring, it's usually come out of mitigation money that has been paid for by the applicant in order to protect that piece of it. And I guess that one of the things I'd be concerned with is whether or not, since we're working with NSTAR on it, so whether or not NSTAR would take any responsibility for the, let's say for the monitoring piece, as well as, anything that could be found out of it. So, it's because it can be very expensive.
It can be very expensive, and it is very expensive. And our laboratories do not have the sophisticated equipment, which ultimately, out of all of this, it would be great if we could have that. And we were the regional entity that did look at groundwater. I mean, ultimately, I can see where we could get a lot of these groups.
I was going to say,
Yeah, we do that now.
I know, we-
depends on what you're looking for.
But it all, I mean, there's
And that's
traces
the way
upon
it is
traces that
looking.
really, such as, like Silent Spring did that study that found pharmaceuticals.
Those we don't have the capability.
We do not have the capability to do that. That was very, very expensive testing. And it went into, usually those are like parts per billion.
Well, we can do
That
parts per
study
billion,
went
but-
to parts per trillion. So in many ways, the trace of those chemicals are even more minute. So to get down into that, sort of like atomic, sort of seeking identification, We don't have it, and it's
Microwave
very,
spectrometer,
very...
though. We have a microwave spectrometer as part of the laboratory equipment. that used to
We
do
do,
the
but there are
water
different
analysis.
levels that really do take some sophistication, and I would really, and ultimately I would like to see a lab where we were the testing, maybe even a center, a group that brought, you look at all the water studies that take place all around the county. You have APCC, you have Silent Spring, you have different groups that are very, into the bays and estuaries, the PALS program out of the commission. All of these groups do testing and have information and data, but nobody knows each other's data. And ultimately, it would be nice to have some sort of place where that data could come together, and there was one testing site that could kind of put it together and then try to make sense in what is...
That's a good idea, except that I keep remembering that one of the problems we had in some of the towns getting them on board for wastewater management was that UMass Dartmouth in particular had an issue with regard to intellectual property,
Right.
so that they did not share that information. And
That's
I'm
right.
hoping that as you pursue this, that we address that part of it.
That's right, because
especially about sharing
universities,
information.
that can lend itself to a paper, a published paper
Yeah.
one day.
I think that was
But-
more methodology, Bill,
Yes.
rather than the data
Right,
itself.
but I mean, there's a lot of groups that aren't academically related, that have a lot of information, and it would be nice to have one place where it could come together and take a look at it all. So, I mean, ultimately, there's some good things that could come out of this, where the county could be the entity that gathered it together and shared it across all interested parties. But right now, that's what I'm doing. So I'm proposing that we kind of maybe convene some sort of subcommittee. Maybe we can let them go off on their own, but at least be the convener of that and help parties come together and see the issue for what it is, without emotion and without like a reactionary fever, and look at it so that they can approach the problem with facts and sharing of information, and then a plan on how to correct whatever it is they
We
want
have
to
some
correct.
type of a work plan, or not a work plan, but some sort of a concept that you want the committee to be
It's
formed
like
on?
a mission
statement.
statement,
Yeah, well,
and the kind of people with the
Well,
knowledge
who's on
and
it? That's my
experiences.
question.
Yeah,
should
who would be
on
on
it.
it? Well, I mean, I would invite people like Green Cape, and there's several organic landscapers who are very into the whole thing. If Silent Spring wants, we could put out some sort of notification for people who may want to participate, have a representative there, and then have legislators there to actually understand what the concerns are of the constituents, and be able to tell them directly, if this is what you want, this is what we need for us to put this into legislation from you. And then that conversation can happen between the legislature. Because as far as the county's tools in being able to react to this, I think we're doing everything we possibly can. But the next step is legislative action. So
But that's at the
Well,
federal level,
yeah.
if I
it would be
understand,
through the state and then onto the federal level.
Well,
Yeah, it would have to be.
But before we get, I think that, the direction is, is appropriate and positive, but the concern that I have is that, there are a lot of pieces and parts which would sort of make it kind of nebulous to people.
Exactly.
One of these good, these feel-good kinds of things, we'll
Right.
get right on it. I think that we need to really think about more specifically what, who would be involved, what kind of outcomes are we looking for,
Right.
and what type of a work plan, and what kind of assets, can we commit to something like that?
Right, right. I mean, our
So-
asset would be the convener, and their asset would be the information they have at
And
hand.
they is,
Who, as I say, these groups. I'm just talking about, there was an outcry of various environmental watchdogs who are pushing an issue without some sort of organization around them. And if they really want to pursue a change of practice, I think if they come together and discuss facts among themselves and realize, if we, just like say Open Cape, they were able to say, this is the problem and this is how we're going to pursue it. And they realized that they had to go down a certain list of people to bring them in as stakeholders, whether it was elected officials from the federal, state, county levels, and organizations like the Technology Council, they were able to incorporate all kinds of people. So I think if you have that type of approach where you're bringing people in, and then you can outline, if this is what we want to have happen, what are the steps we have to take to have that happen? And then they can proceed with their roadmap. I am not certain of everyone I would want to invite, but I think that by talking to certain people, we would have a better handle on it. But I think it's something worth pursuing.
You know what I'm thinking? Maybe if you sat down with a small group of people and put together a concept paper.
Right, exactly.
And,
That's what I would like
and
to
bring
do.
the concept paper back to us so that we have some, idea of
Then that's what I will.
what people are looking for.
I will go forward with that.
Good.
And that's all I needed from you.
We have Diana Lee Casey with us this morning.
And I'm sorry I'm late.
That's
It's
okay. You're not really late because we didn't have public comment at the beginning, so
Okay, so
we were waiting for you to have it.
Yeah,
They
yes.
they didn't know that it was with my grandchildren last week. They thought it was with some.
Yeah.
Oh, for that.
All right, come on up and.
Continuing the conversation that you're having now about
Sure.
environmental justice, when you get to the place to pull some folks together to do possibility thinking, the Reverend Robert Murphy would represent the faith community
Excellent.
on the Cape and in the state and nationally, actually. He's with the Unitarian Fellowship.
Right.
UF, right? Universalist Unitarian Fellowship or whatever the other.
Yeah, something.
Unitarian
UUF.
Universalist.
Yes.
He'd be a great guy. They have a program every.
Before you get started, would you just identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Diane Casey Lee, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Council of Churches.
Excuse me, could you tell me the Reverend's name again, please?
Robert Murphy.
What we refer to as the UU Church
Yes.
on Sandwich Road.
Oh, okay, it's on
Yeah,
Sandwich Road.
in Falmouth, right.
As a matter of fact, Robert, Bob and I are working together to bring all the faith community together in October about environmental justice.
Oh,
So,
it could tie right into
tie
that.
right
That could
into
be
it,
actually
yeah.
a launch for that.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'll speak to him.
you did receive a letter from me, and I did remark in my letter that I know it's very late in the process, too late in the process, I no doubt, there's no doubt. However, I do want to keep you informed about where the Council of Churches and the faith community is moving towards some problems. And I was with you, I think, about 2 months ago and expressed my concern that the churches were struggling financially themselves, and that has continued. And the difficult part for me and for the council and the board is that Jill Scalisi's program, Overnight Hospitality Case Management, is in a very difficult financial place. Somehow, I will find the money. I do want you to know that we're struggling. And if I can just follow up with the letter that I wrote to you with a statement from Jill that we put together, I think if you could just attach this to your records. This is a case management update, and for the past 7 years, the Overnights of Hospitality has provided safe accommodations for homeless men and women. Last year, the Cape Cod Faith Community, through the Overnights, provided over 2,500 nights of safe shelter in sanctuaries. Church volunteers donated over 1,400 volunteer hours a month to operate the program, and the Overnights of Hospitality has become an important piece in the Cape Cod response to homelessness and part of the Cape and Islands regional network to end homelessness. In November of 2004, with the aid of a generous financial donation, the Overnights began offering professional case management services to program participants. Since that time, over 150 Overnights guests have moved into more permanent housing. Last year, 35 homeless individuals in the Overnights moved into more permanent housing. In other words, from being a guest in sanctuaries, they moved into permanent housing. The Council of Churches Overnight Case Management Program also provides ongoing housing support services when guests leave the overnights and move into housing. Over the past 5 years, these support services have played a critical role in helping homeless individuals transition into housing and have successful tenancies. Last year, the overnights case manager, Jill, worked with over 40 former homeless guests to help them maintain their housing. The council also helps run an apartment building called Bridgeport in Falmouth with 8 studio apartments, all rented by former overnight participants. As the program has evolved, a key case management role has emerged, providing more intensive services to a smaller number of at-risk clients. Approximately 25% of housed clients require a higher level of support services to maintain their housing. All of these individuals were chronically homeless and disabled before entering their housing. 75% have serious mental health issues and receive Social Security disability benefits. These individuals are seen on a weekly to bi-weekly basis, and case management is crucial for them to remain in housing. And Jill's not with me this morning because she is in Falmouth at Bridgeport. And she goes every Wednesday or more often, but she's found that over the years they trust that she's going to be there on Wednesday, and if she doesn't show up, I get calls for what happened to her. So we realize how important the routine is for these folks, and also that they maintain their housing. The overnight success rate for maintaining housing is almost 90%. To our knowledge, less than 5% of overnight guests who had housing are presently homeless. Some participants have lost their housing, returned to the overnights, and then moved into new living arrangements. Case management services remain available to continue to work with overnights participants for the long term. Approximately 8% of the clients in housing return to the overnights at some point, but are now living in their own apartments. And the point here is that if Jill were not there to provide the case management, they would be homeless again. Folks who have been homeless for a number of years or even a short term have gone through a trauma. And as they begin to recover through case management, we found we can't drop it. It needs to be ongoing. And when I sort of identified the need for case management services after the success of the overnights of hospitality program in the churches, I guess, well, it's not my field, I'm not trained, but I realized that you just can't take a person from homelessness into a church, into an apartment with case, and then disappear. They go right back into patterns that found them homeless in the first place. So over the past 5 years, the overnights case management program has grown and adapted to not only help homeless individuals to access services and obtain housing, but also to assist clients in maintaining successful tenancies and not return to homelessness. In other words, prevention. It's a prevention program also. So I just want to, first of all, be happy to answer any questions you might have, but also leave this with you so you can include that in the material you receive. I know I went about this process in a very, it's like, the full court press at the last minute. You just throw that ball and pray it's going to land in the hoop or close, and that's what I've done. But I know that you're very supportive of the overnight hospitality. I will comment that in preparation for my being here today, the Reverend Deacon David Aiken called me last night, and he is continuing to meet with the fire marshal. And at the request of the fire marshal, he is just negotiating with David Aiken, which is a good thing.
Right.
David is on our board, and he was given actually a motion was passed that David represent all of us together to try to resolve this. So hopefully it will be resolved. Yeah.
Jill?
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I know that there was an outcry, and there was a lot of press, which I believe caught the fire marshal's attention, as well as everyone else. And I spoke to several fire chiefs across the Cape about the issue, and none of them had an issue with it, other than they are responsible for the safety of people. So, they wanted to be notified that people were there and that there were certain law legal issues that they had to have in place, such as fire alarms and then the issue of someone being awake while people are there. And I know that that was a personal issue with members of the faith community because they wanted this to be a guest program, not a shelter program. So I think that those are being worked out. And when Alan called me first, Alan Burt, to say that the marshal had called him, and he said, do you want to attend? And I said, if he thinks I'm not there, I think it's the best thing. And I think Alan did a great job that night from what he expressed. We discussed all the details before he went into that meeting, but he did a great job, and I do think it's better for individuals. You don't have to have everybody jumping in and getting, issue sniffers and credit snatchers. So I think it's great, and I think it's great that the fire marshal is, trying to find that solution. So, for how I understand it now, it's just sort of being extended until a permanent solution is in place.
We don't
which
have
is a good
anything
way.
in writing.
Right.
What we at the board meeting last week, after budget discussion, a suggestion was made that we seek a waiver, because a waiver is more easily and quickly granted, and then while the waiver is in place to keep it going through the summer months and to comply with some of the other changes, we can work out without feeling pressured.
Right.
Or at least the fire marshal can, because
Right.
he's the one who's walking the plank here.
Exactly.
And
he
we
is.
didn't mean to put him in that position, but as you say, Alan did a very good job, and now just David Aiken is our point person.
That's excellent. Yeah, and he's great, and he was a fire chief as well as now a reverend, so
Yeah.
he can speak both. Both
Yes.
speaks. So it's a good bridge.
Yes.
Right, here we are in television,
Uh-oh.
and I think it's very important because one of the issues is that in order to keep these programs going, we obviously need some help, and this is an opportunity for the community, if the community is watching, let's say to participate, or at least try to offer some continuing help.
Yes.
I do have a question when you brought up the issue of case management and people with mental illness. What does Steve Jokum have to say about this? Because I thought he had a fairly aggressive program through. At least that's what my wife was reporting to me from, because she's on the Citizens Advisory, that they were working and tried to support the housing, on the housing issues. Are you hearing anything from him?
I work with Steve at some of the policy board and also the Main Street Initiative executive. And again, I'll appeal that. It's not my field, but my understanding is the folks that Jill works with as their case manager, Jill involves all other agencies. If they don't have if they're homeless and they're wandering the streets and Tom Naples finds them and they are interviewed and they're appropriate for the overnights, then Jill brings in Duffy Health Center if necessary, or whoever that client needs.
She's an excellent case manager. There's no question
And
about
when mental health issues, which I think she stated was 75% of the clients have mental health issues, she is working with a DMH and letting them know where we're moving the client to, if they're entitled to any resources through DMH. That is plugged in.
Okay. I guess that's
Yes,
the point.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a very holistic approach to case management for the homeless. And if Jill participates in the case manager, I can't think of the name of it, that all of the case managers,
the coalition that
yes.
is convened by the regional network.
Yeah.
Right.
So someone asked me yesterday, the day before I was doing a radio interview, and what changes I've noticed since I've been here. And it's remarkable the collaborations that exist now that didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. And people like Alan Burt, who I often refer to as St. John the Baptist in the wilderness, yelling and screaming, gets our attention. He doesn't go away, and we pay attention. And then other folks, heads of agencies and people like Jill and the council churches, we hear, and all the public agencies, the private agencies, and the faith community come together. Very, very unique. I mean, Jill and I go over their files. We're part of HMIS. So we'll go over the files just so I have a sense of who we're working with. And every agency is, for each client is included if it's appropriate. And I guess what I want to say is what you've already indicated, is case management is the key to success, is the key to preventing homelessness, these folks from going back into homelessness, and getting folks from homelessness into safe housing. And that's what Duffy does in Community Action and Housing Assistance Corporation. All of us do the same thing.
And if I can just add, this program, the Overnights program, is not really an official agency program. It's a church-related program.
It's a ministry.
And I think that really it's to me it's a partner and an adjunct of the overall work that is funded by the state and carried out by the state. But this is really done through volunteer efforts and volunteer monies, and it's successful. And it's a crucial partner in keeping people off the streets and finding their own reservoir of self and hope and finding their sense of dignity again. And that sometimes can only happen with people when people hang in there and say, I care not because I'm being paid. And that is, I think, such a key to the success of this program. We have case management where they can give them the professional direction and assistance, but it's that stick-to-itness of the faith community from their desire to make a difference in the world that I think helps people believe in themselves even more. And, we all know that you have a therapist or you have a case manager, and you still would like to have a little bit more information, but there's, my time's up, I got to go to the next client.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, they will listen, and they're there, and they are willing to help and roll up their sleeves, which is how anything gets done. So I just think it's a great program, and I do think Jill does a great job. And I agree with you, there is more of a collaboration of all the agencies around the mission, as opposed to how do we keep our agency alive.
Exactly.
And I think because of that, more work has gotten done. Yeah, it's really been great, and the regional network concept has helped that quite a bit in bringing those case managers together. They've talked for years, but none of them really met before.
Well, it means that all the case managers from diverse agencies, where Jill's case management certainly is spirit-led, and a public agency doesn't allow the case manager to do that piece, but does it just as professionally. Her commitment has made a huge difference. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I also, as you know, I sent a copy of this letter, changed the words a little bit, to the Assembly of Delegates. I'm just throwing the net out on the other side of the boat. Do you think it would be worth my while to go to the Assembly of Delegates meeting later today, just as a point of information?
I think to hear those statistics of the success of this program
Okay.
will really enlighten them as to what it is all about. It's not just housing or giving people a shelter for an evening. It is an ongoing process in working with these people to lift them up. And I think it would be great for them to hear.
I just want to respond that since you brought it up, that we have two public fundraising initiatives. Lawrence Brown, who you probably read every Friday, is doing a benefit ride for
Yes, he is.
the homeless ministry.
across the country.
So we have a little, you can pledge a penny a mile, or a nickel a mile, or a dime, and hopefully...
2,100 miles, right?
Yeah. And then Jill and Tom Naples are going to walk the Housing with Love walk.
Yes,
So they're
I will be
clients.
walking that as well.
Wonderful.
Okay.
So, and that's sort of a public appeal. Thank you very much for your
Oh,
time.
well, thank you for
Well,
coming
well,
in,
just-
because...
Oh, yeah.
go ahead.
Just one thing on both of those. What opportunities that Larry basically hit me up when I was the last time I saw him. But what opportunities can people have to support Larry and Jill and
Well,
Tom Maple?
the kickoff is this Friday for Larry's walk, Larry's ride.
Yes.
I have to get the ride number.
And where is that going to be?
Well, it's at the a volunteer appreciation for the Council of Churches. We have over 400 volunteers, and we have an appreciation luncheon every year at St. David's. So at that point,
That's the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking another one.
I'll be at that then.
I mean, a picture chapter.
Do you have a website? If you have a website.
yeah, our website is capecodcouncil.org, and it's on the website. And we're hoping for
So if people want to participate, they can go to the website.
Go to the website.
connect to it,
CapeCodCouncil.org.
and they can have an
capecodcouncil.org.
opportunity to participate in
Yes.
this work.
Thank you,
great.
Bill.
Good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, all right, so, I'm sorry, just the details on the volunteer luncheon again. It's this Friday.
Friday, 12 noon,
12 noon.
at St. David's Episcopal Church,
That's in Yarmouth.
South Yarmouth. And we're in Nelsonville.
That's your church?
Yes. And we've had it there for about the past 6 years. No speeches, nothing, just good conversation, and I do a couple of PSAs for the council. One of them will be the kickoff walk.
So is Larry going to write in?
No.
It was not-
We did a television program the council has on Good Faith, and the executive producer called me in a panic because she said he wants to ride his motorcycle into the studio, which he did.
Yeah.
So we got it on camera.
Yeah, I think, no, I think,
Easy enough
yeah,
to do.
I've
They fall
seen
back
people
in
do
there
it before.
while that wall comes up. So
Yeah.
it's no big
Yeah,
deal.
so it was a very good program.
Yeah, great. All right, then I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you.
Right, thanks,
Thank you,
Diane.
and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes,
You know,
thank God.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thanks again, Diane.
Okay, bye now.
Mark, do you have some things you want to?
I do actually
Tell
have a
us
couple
about-
things, yeah. First of all, I have a supplemental budget ordinance for the dredge. We need a little bit more salary money for the dredge for all the work that they're doing, and of course, that will come out of the dredge fund, and that will need to be delivered to the assembly today. And there's a lot going on at the assembly today, as you know. At 1:30, they are doing their hearing on the home rule charter, and at 2:15, they're doing a hearing on the regional policy plan. And then at 3:15, they're doing a hearing on the Cape Cod Compact's energy efficiency program borrowing. And they are also considering the language to amend the budget ordinance for the license plate. Did you see the license plate language they were putting out? Just that requires us to take a look at that. That's the only copy I have, so
This
pass
is
it
to give the
around.
money for the, say that again.
The license plate one was just that we have to report to them, in lieu of including it in the
Oh.
budget, we have to report to them twice a year about what the funding is for the license plate and what the program is that we're putting together for it. Basically, that's what it says.
Right, so it's just a report to them.
Yeah.
It's just nothing more.
Two reports, 2 different times.
Now, I have to say there was some concern about, I've heard back that, our participation in the rest area.
Actually, I haven't heard that. At least it wasn't publicly pronounced. Did you hear anything at the hearings?
How are we,
We
all
were in-
right, so there is a,
We put 35,000 in the budget for next year to pay for the rest area, basically,
from what funds?
from the license plate.
But
Did
there
the
may be,
EDC approve that?
no, there may be, apparently that came up at the last EDC meeting. They may not want to fund all of it or part of it, so I think the first meeting in June, we should really
Right.
Okay.
take.
Although I would say
concern.
that's
Yeah, there are
your
some
call.
concerns on the
Yeah.
I
EDC.
know.
Huh?
It is our call.
We have
more
a piece
than
of
their
paper
call.
that basically says that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's your call, not their call. I mean,
Right.
they may say, well, we
That's
would
what they
prefer
recommend.
not to it, but
But that's how it is.
ultimately it's your decision.
Well, we should put that on our agenda for June.
Yeah, we'll include that
Ninth.
in June. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be good.
because-
Is that our
Well, we-
meeting?
no,
June
no,
9th?
the
Because
first
that's
meeting-
the week
Just have
after
June
the.
9th.
That's
It's
the week
something
after the
better.
EDC meeting. The EDC meeting will be June 3rd,
right.
Yeah, the
It's
first
Thursday the
Thursday.
3rd. And then for our meeting on the 9th,
We can
we
can include that, sure.
should include that on our meeting for June
Okay.
9th.
Yeah.
I need a motion to approve this ordinance on the dredge.
That's the one you just
See,
discussed.
Yeah,
I'll
you can
move
just
it.
sign it and
Oh,
then
just
we'll
sign it?
include it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you
should
don't need to
include
vote
that.
on
Do
it.
we not have to vote on an ordinance?
No.
Then we can sign it.
You come on in, yeah. You should have gotten, Dan, you're blessing us with your presence. Wow.
Big dogs.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, don't leave it.
You should have gotten an email forwarded to you through me from Rob Troy on the performance evaluation process. Did you see that?
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty clear.
Yes, we are.
When do you want to schedule that?
We already have. No,
It
we
was
have
sent,
scheduled.
it's dated May 9th. I thought I included everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't got it, I will forward it to you. Basically, what it says is the open meeting law requires that in discussions, you have to do it in open meeting. But once you do a written review, that's a privileged document.
And have you
Right.
scheduled the date for the open discussion?
Not yet, no.
Thank you.
We are very close to scheduling it.
Why don't
But I
we-
don't have I will have a date for you on Friday. I will let you know what the
Is that
date is
something
on
that you
Friday.
think-
Okay, I'm assuming it'll be one of your regular Wednesday meetings.
Yeah.
It has to be in an open session,
Right,
yeah.
but-
So the discussion
Is that all
has to be in an
clear?
open session.
Yeah, well, yes. Well, we can take this up a little bit later because there's some other
Yeah.
options
I think what
available
we
to
should
us.
do is, we kind of, just before we opened this meeting, we had, the discussion on the schedule. So what Maggie and I should do is put together a much more codified, this is what the schedule looks like, and then next week, you guys can talk about it a little
Right.
bit more and then bless it,
Okay,
once we get to that point.
that's good.
All right, I'll do that.
And then the only thing I have in addition is to report that I gave a presentation to the Collector and Treasurers Association on the municipal relief package and the pension system reforms. And I just noticed that the Senate has engrossed a municipal relief package that's much different than the House version.
Oh.
So they are going to go into conference, obviously, to work out the differences, and eventually there will be an up or down vote, no debate, after the conference committee works out its issues. So
Maggie,
No, unless you had any questions for me on the,
any questions on the
HRAs?
summary of actions?
can you sign that? They signed it correctly.
No, I had one, but I resolved it for the meeting.
Okay.
I have
Any
none.
questions?
No, I looked
Then
it
you
over.
want to...
I think Maggie wanted just to mention, in these, you should mention about the
Rate saver plan, that's what I'm asking. Do you have any questions
Yeah.
on that?
Yes, I have a question on that rate saver plan.
Could you, could you explain it?
Yes, Cape Cod Municipal Health Group is offering a new program called the Rate Saver Plan, which will save on our health insurance costs for both the employee and the employer, which is Barnstable County. And basically, for what this does is it allows, and in partnership with that, you set up a health reimbursement account. And what this will do is allow employees to take an option for lower premiums for higher copay costs. And the health reimbursement account is set up by the employer and is, for instance, for a family, it's $1,000, will offset some of those additional out-of-pocket copay costs. And to be very cut to the chase, these programs are very attractive for people who are younger and healthy and are paying a lot for medical insurance, but are not, because of their health status, are not using that. And this is an advantage to them to maintain the same coverage, but to allow them to save some of their out-of-pocket expenses in exchange for higher copays. Mm-hmm. So this is available for all employees during open enrollment, and Michelle, our group insurance staff person, is going and meeting with each of the departments and their staff to talk about it, to answer questions, etc.
And when does open enrollment end?
Open enrollment ends the first week in June. I don't have the
It has
exact
to be
date.
done by the end of May because
Right.
the deductions for June
Payroll.
apply to next year's
Right.
premium.
Okay.
So the first payroll in June is like the 14th, so it ends. You have to have it pretty much wrapped up.
Right.
And you,
Excuse me. Do all the employees have information that they could evaluate it if they want to discuss it with
yes,
their
and
family?
in addition to the information, we've also offered small group Q&A. Because when you read it, it sounds great, but everybody has questions. And Michelle's been answering questions. So far we have had lots of interest, and we'll be able to tell you how the outcome is and monitor the savings and how it works out as time goes by.
Okay, and then, just so I'll understand, you're not proposing to change any of the present coverage, you're just changing
Correct.
the copay
Correct.
piece of it.
So if you are a Harvard, Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO, everything that's covered, what changes is your out-of-pocket expenses change. Your office visits now are $10, they go to $20. Emergency room visit might be $25 and it goes to $75. So, and then the difference in that copay, we set up an HRA so that you as an employee could have and you have a capped amount, so you have $1,000 for your family. So any of those out-of-pocket expenses you get reimbursed through the HRA plan.
If you select that plan, I just wanted to make sure that it's
Right.
clear. Those are optional. They're the optional rate saver plans. We encourage people to look at them because we think that a lot of people can save money on them, especially with the HRA piece in place. But it's optional right
Right.
now.
Health insurance is a very individualistic. You need to look at your own needs and the needs of your family when choosing your health insurance plan.
And does the employee put up the $1,000 that's sort of held? It's the county that holds
An
that.
HRA is established by law by the employer.
So I go to the doctor for my checkup and it's $20. I can put that $20 to you.
You pay
and
the difference, so that would be the $10.
so it'd be okay. So it's the half.
Correct.
Okay.
Then you could use your flexible spending account that also is optional for employees for the difference. The anecdotal evidence from the town of Wellesley, which came down and spoke to this, is in there, this was mandatory, they bargained it in, so everybody's on, the only thing they offer are rate saver plans. And what they found after their first year is the majority of their individuals don't end up using the maximums under the HRAs. So,
Right, because most people are healthy and they just go for their routine checkup or what have you.
Since some employees might want
Which
to
I need.
discuss this with their families, is there any place where this information is summarized so that they could discuss it?
there has
at
been
home?
information sent to all the employees, and if anyone has questions, they should call Michelle directly, because Michelle could spend
Does
some
she
time.
have that information now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. So it includes deductibles as well as copays? Changes in the deductibles?
No, no
For the rate
deductibles.
No,
savers?
just
No.
copays.
Just the copays.
Rate saver plans only change copays.
Copays.
Okay.
So that was it.
Great. That's it. Thank you. So Mark, would you like to introduce the auditors?
I think you needed to vote.
she-
Oh, we didn't vote.
I didn't
Yes,
hear a vote.
I will make a motion that we accept the summary of action.
All right, second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 3 in favor?
And I think
Thank you.
our
It's unanimous.
video man
Time
has a
to
question.
change the,
Time to change.
yes.
Okay, so
Time
we'll do
to
that.
change
No,
the
you
text,
guys
so we'll
can
do
step
that.
forward. I'll
Wait,
limit this
wait,